violence and other kind of violence.
Get away! I could be at work, at school, in my car, I can still get shot by the police, but I can get shot anywhere.
So it is what it is.
What's good, YouTube? It's the Black Gen Z Mindset. Make sure you go ahead and like, comment, share, subscribe, and let's get into the video. So the first story we got here, man, this guy apparently murked his stepfather during an argument over inviting a LGBT guest into their New Jersey home. So a man allegedly shot and killed his stepfather during a dispute at a family gathering over the stepdad's decision to invite an LGBT person into the home, prosecutors said. Christian Smith, 23, allegedly objected to stepfather Dennis McKenzie, 43, inviting the person to their New Jersey home and confronted McKenzie, according to Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office. He made it known to his stepfather that he did not approve of that person coming into their house, that their house was a house of God. Assistant Prosecutor Dana Anton said on Wednesday. Smith's remarks, including homophobic slurs, the prosecution said Smith's mother reportedly tried to break up the fight before it escalated. The stepfather took a swing at Mr. Smith and I believe maybe superficially hit him, Anton said, adding that Smith was not injured. In response to that, Mr. Smith took out a Glock 19 that was in his waistband and shot him 3 times. McKenzie was hit twice in the head and the body and died on the scene in front of Smith's mother and teen relatives, prosecutors said. This argument that preceded the murder, it started over an act of bias and an act of bias intimidation where he is using a slur about someone's sexual orientation. Smith's public defender, Catherine Constantine Blinn, argued that the shooting was not intentional and said more forensic evidence is needed. She claimed that her client did not plan to murder McKenzie and even dissembled his gun while waiting for the cops to respond. The weapon had been legally purchased in Pennsylvania. What that suggests to me, Judge, is that this was accidental and that in order to prevent any further issues, Mr. Smith dissembled the gun until police arrived. Superior Court Judge Mary Beth Kramer declined to grant Smith pretrial release despite pleas from his mother and godparents who spoke highly of him, according to the defense. So this man's mom is still fighting for him, even though he just killed her husband. The weight of the evidence in the eyes of the court in this matter are very strong, Kramer said, according to NJ.com. Even with the argument that this was somehow an accidental discharge, he still had to take a loaded handgun out of his waistband at a family gathering. I find that he represents a danger to the community. And I agree. You know, if this guy can't handle his emotions around LGBT people and he feels like he had to murk his stepdad, obviously there were other problems going on. He must really not have liked his stepdad. What stands out to me is that he inflicted harm against the stepdad and not against the LGBT person who, according to him, was unwelcome, you know. And I just find it odd that his mom and godparents are vouching for him, right? They're vouching for this guy and he killed his stepfather in cold blood. Obviously, the attorney is vouching for him, saying it was accidental. She's doing her job, okay? But this makes no sense for this guy to do that. It looks like he's mixed with something, but it's just it's crazy, man. Obviously, this dude is on demon time, and you know, unfortunately, it cost him or his stepdad his life.
36 News has confirmed that this is the victim of today's chaotic shooting at a Midtown apartment complex. Neighbors woken up by gunfire that killed Courtney Cox. That shooting happened at the Atlantic House apartment complex, and police say when they showed up, a man on a balcony began shooting at officers. We have learned that man's name is Jarvis Jarrett. He died at the scene. CBS 46's Savannah Louie live in Midtown in Savannah. You've been talking with neighbors who are still very much impacted by this shooting.
So this is Midtown Atlanta. And this guy ended up shooting his girl, who, you know, was a educated sister, shooting his girl. This guy ends up shooting this girl, and this woman, you know, she was an educated woman. She was a well-known attorney out in Atlanta. And it's crazy that they ended up, you know, linking up, you know what I mean? Because it's like, how are these women getting together with these men who are just insane, it seems?
And not just neighbors, but I also did get a chance to speak very briefly with the families of both the victim and the suspect. They are both shocked and devastated. But even the folks who live here, who saw this whole thing unfold on the 21st floor, say the incident just doesn't feel real.
Terrifying for me, because then I'm sitting in my bathroom, like, you know, it's one thing to, like, you know, do self-defense if, like, it comes quickly, but when you're sitting there and at any moment there could be someone that climbs in and you have to deal with that, it was harrowing.
A shooting scene on a balcony sending an Atlantic House resident into hiding.
He let off multiple rounds into the building, and that's when I called the police.
So obviously, you know, it looks like the white boy ended up calling the police. But this dude, they say, was jumping from balcony to balcony.
Who didn't want his face on camera says he witnessed a shooting just 3 floors below his apartment.
And I still didn't really believe. I mean, I've been around guns my whole life, and I don't know if the panes are very thick in this building or if, you know, noise traveled weird, but it didn't really sound like a gunshot. But I'm fairly certain it was, and then I went back outside and I saw him wave a gun.
Officers responded to reports of gunshots at this complex around 3:15 this morning. When they arrived, they saw 32-year-old Jarvis Jarrett shooting from a balcony. And there's evidence he was jumping from balcony to balcony before firing a rifle at officers. At least one officer returned fire.
Sadly, we could not address what happened inside an apartment, but it is our quick response that I think that.
So we got the sheriff or deputy or whatever. As you know, in Atlanta, we have a lot of African-American police officers. So there's representation there. There's definitely representation there. I think the biggest problem is the support that they're getting, okay? They need more support. They need a larger presence in the city and throughout the city because, quite frankly, Atlanta is becoming extremely dangerous.
It saved our community from a much worse incident.
GBI reports Jarrett was found dead on the balcony from gunshot wounds. Inside the apartment, the woman who lived there, Courtney Cox.
So this sister, Courtney Cox, she was a attorney in Atlanta, well-known attorney. You know, how she ended up dealing with this brother who was on demon time, I don't know. Maybe she took a case from him. Maybe she, you know, whatever. They met while he was in jail. I have no clue. But it seems like a lot of times, man, these sisters end up falling for that fatal attraction.
Also found dead. Police say the two had some sort of relationship. It's not clear if Jarrett was killed by an officer. Hit a number of other units and even a water pipe in the building, causing flooding to units under the 21st floor and McCrae's Tavern, which is underneath the building. Now, coming up at 6 o'clock, we're going to actually be speaking with a woman who says a bullet went into her unit. We'll have her story coming up again at 6 o'clock. But for now, reporting live from Midtown, Savannah Louie, CBS 46.
So I wanted to show you guys this brother because I don't know why, but for some reason, the news did not want to show his face, most likely because he's a black man. And the news is, it's like they don't want the truth to come out that a lot of these situations that are going down are occurring because, you know, there's a lot of brothers who are out of control and are on demon time. But anyways, he has 2 previous mugshots. How this attorney was not able to look up his legal record and whatnot is, you know, weird to me. And I think a lot of these women, man, they need to do their due diligence and look into the guys that they're dealing with, man, because I mean, obviously this dude was on demon time. I already told you guys about the Short Dread brothers. They're on demon time. We've done multiple stories about the Short Dread brothers. You know, the ugly face Dread brothers. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we oftentimes talk about black women going for the thug type dudes, and you know, this is the archetype. And what happens is they'll go for these dudes, and on the back end they'll say, oh, protect black women. Well, we can't protect you if you keep going towards the fire. Like, yeah, I mean, the firemen can't save you if you go towards the fire when you're already out. Like, basically, she's already out the hood. She made it out the hood. She got her job. She's an attorney. And then she goes back and tries to dig up this ragamuffin so that he can blow her back out. And I don't know what happened to make him snap like that. Maybe he figured out she was dealing with multiple men and not just him, but it sent him over the edge. And sheesh, these women got to be careful, man.
Along this dirt road in Umatilla, everyone knows everyone.
And they tend to handle business on their own. So if there's an issue, they talk it out, they work it out, and they move on.
But this time, a confrontation between neighbors took a deadly turn. This normally quiet stretch of country road pierced by the sound of gunfire on Wednesday. Sergeant Paul Bloom with the Marion County Sheriff's Office says they got a call about a shooting after detectives say Clifton Bliss got angry about his neighbor's pet.
Look how quickly they're... When it's a white suspect...
Imagine working for a community-oriented company that provides delicious snacks that make kids and families happier and healthier.
Mr. Bliss was so upset that his neighbors
got angry.
Look how quickly they're willing to put up the suspect when he's a white guy. I mean, they didn't even hesitate to put... Once they said his name, boom, he's up there. In the other story, they didn't even show the guy's face. I had to go and do a Google search on my own to find this man.
Angry about his neighbor's pet.
Mr. Bliss was so upset that his neighbor's cat had wandered over into his yard that he went, retrieved a rifle, leaves his home, goes across the street to the victim's home, tells them that he was upset about their cat coming into his yard.
Detectives say Bliss went to his neighbor's house armed with a .22 caliber rifle, and while he was originally mad about the cat, Sergeant Bloom says Bliss directed his anger at someone else.
He left his home, went to the victim's home, threatened to shoot his cat, and ultimately shot the victim and killed the victims.
In the incident report, a witness says Bliss shot the cat's owner, James Taylor Jr.
Wow, so the guy killed his neighbor over a cat wandering into his yard. It definitely, you could consider this guy trailer park trash, whatnot. It's wild. Yeah, I mean, the anger issues, we can call this white rage if that's even a thing. But I don't know, man. It's just like the coverage is so different with these situations versus if it was a brother.
Twice in the chest, killing him. Neighbors say Bliss would often fight with them about their pets.
Everyone there told us that this gentleman was sort of the neighborhood hothead.
Bliss is now behind bars, without bond, charged with second-degree homicide. The sheriff's office says the cat was not hurt, but now his owner's family is left
The cat was not hurt? What? Are you kidding me?
Grieving.
We're just shocked that something this minuscule could rise to something this devastating.
In Marion County, Marley Martinez, WESH 2 News.
Thoroughly clear up the situation. This is happening after Clark was arrested in California on a separate but similar gun in the car situation. It might be easy for authorities to figure out whose Uzi it was, but it won't be as simple to predict how all this will affect decision making in the California justice system.
This is the closest we can get to an Uzi at Blue Steel Guns and Ammo in Raytown. It's an Intertech Arms 9mm. It's short and stubby. That's kind of like an Uzi. Here's a generic picture of one. They're widely semi-automatic and can be automatic, but that would be wildly expensive to buy and license. They're also somewhat uncommon.
Is it kind of rare to see an Uzi around here, or?
Well, I wouldn't say it's rare. It's just
They're collected. People bought them up. You don't see them that often. In 11 years, I've probably only had 10 or 12 of them come through here.
Stephen Burkeen, owner of the place, says with the LAPD describing the gun simply as an Uzi, it's hard to know how serious the situation is for Frank Clark, who was pulled over late Sunday night, LAPD says, for an unspecified traffic violation.
So this guy, Frank Clark, this isn't his first gun charge, and he may be fearing for his safety, and he might be, you know, trying to relive his youth, trying to show that he's still down with whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of dudes just be carrying just to seem down, but, you know, he really might have enemies. He really might have ops, so I wouldn't put it past him.
3 months prior, Clark had a similar situation, pulled over for not having a front license plate, with California authorities saying they found loaded weapons in an open bag in the back seat. Burkeen says the Uzi factor would be less of a factor here in Missouri if his paperwork was in place.
If you got pulled over here in Kansas City and you got a Uzi concealed in a bag, you got a concealed carry license, you are not breaking the law. It's a semi-automatic pistol or rifle. No big deal.
Clark is currently out on a $35,000 bond. His court date is scheduled for October 18th. That's during the NFL season. The Chiefs play the Washington football team the day before, if that court date sticks. Lauren?
Update tonight. A News Leader 9 update tonight. A Columbus mother made an appearance in court this morning after being charged with the death of her 3-month-old son. 27-year-old Tanya Roberts is charged with 2 counts of cruelty to children and murder in the 2nd degree.
Wow, so Tanya Roberts murked her child, infant son. You know, another example of just like these negligent single moms. Honestly, I've done multiple stories on these situations, and it's always tough, especially when they have taken the life of someone so young. You know, it's hard to swallow, man.
Her son, Jameer Roberts, was pronounced dead at Piedmont Pediatric Emergency Room back in March. Officials say Roberts died of blunt impact injuries to the head and head trauma.
I mean, this is like the second story that I've done out of Columbus, Georgia this week. And, you know, Columbus, Georgia, it's always been a little sketch, but it looks like it's heating up, man.
Her case was bound over to Superior Court this morning. Anyone with information on this case is asked to call Detective Jeff Jones at the number there at the bottom of your screen. You can remain anonymous.
Nike executive Larry Miller recently admitted that he murdered a person when he was in a gang in Philadelphia as a teenager. Miller, the Nike and Michael Jordan brand chairman, said in an exclusive interview with Sports Illustrated that he shot a man in 1965 when he was 16 years old. He said he used a .38 caliber gun to shoot 18-year-old Edward White.
Wow, so we got Larry Miller, a Nike executive and Jordan brand executive, admitting to murder in 1965. And, you know, he's in such a high position. He's kept this secret for years. It looks like he must be past the statute of limitations if he's speaking on this. But this is a testament to how early these murders really started in the black community. All right. Like, these things have been going on. I mean, he killed this guy in 1965. He was a teenager. A lot of these young cats who ended up growing up, who are grown now, 40, 50 years old, got multiple bodies that nobody knows about.
Who died on the spot.
I've never reported or written a story anything like this. This one was truly unique.
Sports Illustrated senior writer Howard Beck is still wrapping his head around a recent interview with former Trailblazers president and current Nike executive Larry Miller.
This is something that happened in the heat of the moment at age 16. Should that define a person for the rest of their lives? Everybody will have their own answer to that.
Beck reveals in a story for SI.
Should that define a person for the rest of their lives? Look, he took somebody else's life. He should be held accountable. It looks like he got away with it. So I don't know if they can really bring charges on him now. Maybe they can't. I have no clue. You know, I've heard that there are no statute of limitations on murder. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what they're gonna do, if anybody's gonna pursue this, but this story has pretty much gone unaccounted for. I mean, imagine if, you know, John Gruden said, yo, I killed somebody when I was a teen. Imagine how insane, imagine how much uproar there would be, even more than his alleged homophobic and racist remarks. Yeah, so nobody bats an eye when this Nike executive, former NFL president, right, or NBA, whatever, says that he killed somebody. Nobody says anything. I mean, this story pretty much died, but everyone's in an uproar about John Gruden. It's crazy.
That in September 1965, when Miller was just 16 years old, he shot and killed 18-year-old Edward White on the streets of West Philadelphia.
So when Larry Miller was 13, he got in with a gang. And when he was 16, one of his friends and fellow gang members was stabbed and killed. But Larry Miller considered this particular kid to be kind of an innocent. And so Larry and his friends at that time were seeking vengeance, straight up.
Beck.
So he went to get his get back.
Says Miller was convicted of murder and sent to prison, where he earned a degree in accounting from Temple University. From there, Miller climbed the corporate ladder.
He's had a lot of...
Okay, well, I mean, he served his time. He's good then. He's good then. Yeah, I mean, he served his time. He did his dirt. Yeah, I mean, he got out. The fact that these guys are able to commit murders at a young age and then get out in adulthood is kind of sketch, but hey, at least he's an anomaly. He's one of those guys who didn't become a victim of his own inflicted trauma, if you will.
Have time to think about this, and he's written about it.
That's right. Miller and his oldest daughter co-wrote a book set to be released in the coming months. While it's unclear where the proceeds of the book sales will go, Jump, My Secret Journey from the Streets to the Boardroom chronicles Miller's rise from his troubled youth.
And this is like straight out of an episode of Power, right? Like this is, I mean, it's crazy. It's art imitating life.
I would hope, and that's certainly Larry Miller's hope, that people who have, found themselves in trouble in any number of ways, that they can see this as an example that you can turn it around.
And perhaps there's no better time for a story like this one than now. Portland finds itself drowning in gun violence. More than 900 shootings this year alone. Dozens of homicides on top of that. Just when it seems all hope is lost.
My initial reaction is mostly just, this is a really compelling story.
Howard Beck shares Larry Miller's incredible story of redemption.
As a reporter and as a writer, it will stick with me for the rest of my life, for sure.
Howard Beck reports that it was only recently that Larry Miller shared all of this with some of his closest confidants, and there's been a lot of support. That includes support from the CEO of Nike, who said in a statement to Sports Illustrated, this story should serve as an example of the strength, perseverance, and resilience of the human spirit.
What about the human spirit that was taken away? I mean, these are the wokest companies in the world, the most social justice reform, all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to black on black crime, oh, well, he's reformed and it's all good. I'm not saying that he can't get a second chance or whatnot, but oh man, it's like there's so much uproar for just other things, and this is a huge deal. Okay, and I'm sure he's been living with his guilt for how long, maybe not. I don't know how these dudes be feeling after they catch bodies, but it's just a wild story.
One more thing worth mentioning, we did try to talk to Larry Miller ourselves, but it appears at this point he's not granting interviews to local media. Reporting in downtown Portland, I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
Gang violence and other kind of violence.